So, welcome to episode 2 of Stand in Your Truth. I'm here talking with Dr. Kasia Wilk, and our second episode is going to be on choice points towards truth. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Dr. Kasia Wilk. I'm a counselling psychologist and transformation coach. And I'm incredibly passionate about supporting people through the process of transformation. I have my own private practice. I regularly facilitate workshops and speaking events as well on supporting people to just live in their truth, live in their highest purpose. So I've been working with clients for a number of years now, and it's been a beautiful journey, beautiful transformation of witnessing just everything that people go through. And I'm also really passionate about supporting people in the choice-making process. So I've now ventured into creating films that are just bringing in that awareness regarding the choices we make and how they impact our lives. And so that's another big project I'm working on now, is my first feature film called Unseen Scars, which is all about supporting people with recovering from trauma and the choices they make with that.
Fascinating. Well, have to let the viewers in on a little secret. I've known you for 12 years now, something like that. I think it is, 12 years, something like that. So myself and Kasia met when we were doing a course at John Moores University. We did a MSc in consciousness and transpersonal psychology. I did half of that and then went on to create a online magazine, and you kind of finished the full MSc and then went on to set up your private practice.
Of course.
Yeah, it was amazing, really interesting. It's no longer going, but great group of people, and really, really kind of interesting for people that want to kind of learn more about consciousness and transformation.
Absolutely, which is a very big topic nowadays, and it's a never-ending journey, I think, of peeling back the layers and learning more and more. The more you learn sometimes in this area, the more you realize there's so much more.
So for those who don't know you, can you introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit more about your journey, like how you got to kind of your authentic truth today, and what that looked like, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a really interesting journey, because I've always been interested in consciousness and the human mind. I was always, since a little girl, just fascinated with why do we do what we do, and I always felt there was something a bit more that was available for us to understand about life and why we're here, that I didn't feel I was getting really through sort of, traditional education. So I always was like ask questions, and I knew that I wanted to also help people.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a big passion of mine, is being able to just uplift people, make people feel good. So I think that combination just naturally made me gravitate towards psychology, which is studying the mind and being able to help people. But then along the journey, I've had, also some of my own challenges. I think I witnessed some trauma in my family, mental health issues, and really started getting present to the fact of the impact of that, and just how to navigate that. So sometimes, obviously, we don't always know like what coping strategies to use when we go through difficulties in life, and that's something that obviously is a given, because we're all going to go through challenges, whether that's just big ones or small ones. And I really got sort of impacted, I think, and was seeking how to also work through that, which also led me to working, I think, with people on that deeper level, and really getting to understand sort of that inner work that we have to do in order to process challenging things, traumas, things that impact us. We have to recover from that. So that's how I think that combination really made me be very passionate about what I do. And I do see life as a journey of discovery. So I just knew I wanted to go and be a psychologist. And I didn't know that I would be venturing into film. That was not on the cards. But as the journey unfolded and I started working with people one-on-one, and I just thought, this is such a powerful process when people come and they access therapy, they access coaching, they access mentorship, they learn about how to move forward in life, how to make choices that really take them where they want to go. And then I thought, there's got to be a bigger platform to bring this to people rather than just working one-on-one with people. And that's when I started asking the question of, how can I bring this to a bigger platform? And so I got the idea of venturing into film, and it's been another journey of just following the guidance and trusting that there's a powerful platform that could be used to take what I know from psychology and just take it onto the film screen and create films that are different, that are not just entertaining, but also educational and empowering, and really highlight that same self-awareness that people get in therapy. Now they're going to be getting it through watching the films that my film production is creating. So it is, it's a big leap, but I'm really excited about it. So that's how I've got to where I'm at today. And it's a continuous journey. I live my message of choice making and knowing that sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's hard. And we just have to keep returning to that self-awareness and really asking ourselves, why do we make those choices and what's driving them? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally resonate with that. In terms of kind of developing that self-awareness, then how do you think you did that for yourself? How do you personally kind of listen to that inner guidance?
That's a really good question. I think it varies for different people. I mean, my go-to tool that I really love is meditation, because I know when I have a busy life that my mind can be very active, and it's only when you sort of almost pull away from all of the busyness of the day-to-day and you kind of connect inward and just be really still and go into meditation, that's when you can access, I believe, such deep wisdom and guidance that you won't access when you're in that kind of busy day-to-day thinking of what you've got to do and what problems you have to solve. And that's not the best place actually to find the most powerful guidance and make the most powerful choices. So I try to cultivate time every day to go within and just be still. And sometimes that is literally sitting still and listening to my breath, and sometimes it's going out in nature, and for example, and just being out for a walk or listening to the birds and just kind of being present to what's around me and listening to the little whispers, because sometimes that inner voice is not very loud, but if you listen and you trust, you do get guidance. And it should normally feel really good as well when you get it. So your feelings also. Right.
So you're big, obviously, on choices and choice points. And I guess when our monkey mind kind of goes crazy, we can have so many thoughts that we're just kind of trapped in our head. So by the process of meditation is what you're saying, that we're kind of slowing down and coming in touch with this inner guidance, this kind of inner intelligence, I guess, which is a place that we can make choices from. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so it's because there's different states that we can get into, different consciousness states. I know you're into this as well. It's and the thing is, it's the awareness of knowing, like, what state am I in? You know, am I in a really like agitated, fearful, panicky, fight or flight mode state? That's not the best state from which to make choices, because it's a state of being very much about self-protection and survival. You can't see the bigger picture from that state. It's very limited. So absolutely, going into a place where you can let go of that fear and access a higher state of consciousness, which is actually feeling, knowing that everything's going to be okay and that the solutions are there, that you have support, you have all the resources, you have options. There's so many things that are probably already working in your life. That state of peace and calmness, which meditation is a gateway to, is the doorway. It's from that place, that's where you can actually access some really powerful insights. But it's a practice, because it's not like automatic for us to access that naturally, because our minds tend to be programmed to always want to protect us. So it's easier to go to the problems, it's easier to go to the what if scenarios, rather than trusting that everything is actually working out for me. I don't have to worry and, you know, operate from that state. So I think it's a daily practice, and we have to just choose that every day and cultivate.
So in terms of choices, what do we mean by choices made out of love or choices made out of fear? And how would you define those?
I love that question, because it's one that it's taken me a process of discovery to really understand how, again, there's different emotional states that we can access, and when we're different in a different emotional state, we really can then look at what difference does a choice made from love look like versus a choice made from fear. And I think there's a really great exercise that anyone can do, which is just about thinking about, if you have a decision to make, is to just noticing what options you do have, and noticing like how you feel when you're thinking about those different options. Because when you're in fear and you're thinking about, for example, you know, what if you're thinking about a future event, like, do I take this risk? You know, let's say you want to take a risk and invest some money in something, and the one scenario is, no, I'm not going to invest because it's too risky and I might lose the money. And the other scenario is, no, I'll invest in it because it may turn out that I end up, you know, creating exactly what I want, or it's going to lead me to where I want to go. So fear is always like a contracting energy. When you're thinking about the potential outcome of something, if you're feeling quite contracted and you're using that as a source of, oh no, I'm not going to do that because it feels you know, it feels like something's going to go wrong, then you're gonna probably avoid being in your full self-expression and just doing the things that actually you really desire. Whereas love is this feeling of actually connecting to your desires and feeling into that. And it's usually very expansive. It feels like everything's opening up. It doesn't feel like you want to like contract and protect yourself. You want to open up and be out in the world. And when you connect to that emotional state and you're like, oh my gosh, like that would be amazing if I, for example, invested this money and I was able to open up all these doors, you know, it could be for business or whatever that risk is. But you connect to the possibility that's available when you make that choice and take that action. And that normally feels very expansive. So if you make a choice from that place, that's what you're going to get. Whereas if you let the fear drive the choice, then you're going to have, you're going to be creating those results. So that's a really good thing just to check in with whenever you're at that precipice. And love can include things like forgiveness. When we're upset with someone, it can also include courage. When you're thinking about, for example, showing up and being vulnerable, courage is connected to that as well. So it's really getting into this self-awareness of just noticing how that feels, that energy. Fear again is very like everything contracts, you can feel it in your body. Love is, it's like you're opening yourself up and you want to give, you want to step out there, you want to express yourself, you want to share something. So that's what I think is the most powerful way of noticing what love, a choice from love feels like versus a choice from fear.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because is it possible we could have both, right? I'm just thinking back to when I did Toastmasters, like I really loved getting on stage and doing that. But I also had a lot of fear, right? And it was quite visceral in my body and in my nervous system, really. Is there something we can do to override that, would you say?
It's a practice. I think the more that you can't ever, I think, make fear dissipate, because that is just your body's way of trying to protect you. And anytime you step into the unknown, like you're about to go on stage, right, you're gonna have fear come up. But when you do it anyways, and you remind yourself of the fact that you're celebrating your action of doing that, rather than whatever the fear comes up of judgment, or I'm going to look bad, or it's all that, usually based on the outcome. When you just celebrate the fact that you're doing it, that begins to transform the way that you interact with fear. It's almost like fear becomes something that you just kind of embrace along the journey, but it doesn't stop you from actually living the life that you want to live and doing the things that you want to do. So, the more that you expose yourself actually to the things that cause a bit of discomfort and cause some fear, and then you do them anyways, and you feel that kind of feeling afterwards, which was like, that was amazing. I felt the fear before I did it, but then after I did it, it was amazing. Now you're programming your mind to actually realize that it's okay to feel that fear and take action anyways. Don't take the action, that fear gets bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point that it actually can be quite paralyzing, and it's all in your head.
Yeah.
We do need to actually, it's a good question, yes, because we do need to expose ourselves in the process of operating from love or courage or faith to the fear that will accompany you, usually when you're in the process of taking that action. And then it's another choice to say, I feel the fear, but I'm not going to let that fear drive the next moment for me and pull away. I'm gonna make the other choice, which is I'm gonna keep moving forward, and you'll feel the benefit of that. So
yeah, I definitely think it's something to do with being less attached to the outcome, like you say, and just being in that moment and trusting in process. Because when I think back to that particular time, I was so almost conscious of everything, needing everything to go right, which meant that I was kind of in that control mode, which is obviously fear. I couldn't have the fact that I would mess up, be embarrassed, all those kinds of things. And I think, like you said, when you let go and you just trust and surrender, you can think, well, it's okay. If this goes wrong or that goes wrong, I'm just enjoying the moment. I'm enjoying the process, which is really interesting. So tell us a bit more about kind of how you choose and decide. Obviously, you set up Choice Point Productions, this film company, to educate us all about the power of choice. I guess, like you say, you kind of live your truth and you embody what you practice. So how do you make that decision point, and what are perhaps some of the big choice points that you've had in your life, and how have you made those decisions?
Hmm. I love this question. It's a big one. I believe this is my life's message, because I have witnessed even the choices that my parents made. I could see, for example, like if I go all the way back even to, I'm from Poland, my family emigrated to Canada, and that was a very courageous choice at the time because of the circumstances regarding that, and just how difficult it was back in the 80s to emigrate during Poland being under martial law. My parents had like $300 in a suitcase, and it was they didn't know what was going to happen. They just left the country with me being 4 years old. And I just remembered the courage, I guess, that it took, the determination, the tenacity of trusting that like they wanted a better life, and they were fully committed to it. And so that kind of example, now obviously looking back and seeing the journey, seeing how everything did work out, it just it set the precedent for me to not be afraid to take risks. Because I look especially to my mom, who's, she's quite a risk taker, and I see that whether you take risks or you don't take risks, you're still going to have challenges in life. That's inevitable. So I believe that you might as well go for the big dreams. You might as well go for the desires that are in your soul, on your heart, that are like, it's your soul calling you forward. And yes, it's going to feel both exciting and scary. But if you look back on your life, because I think that, we only have a limited amount of time to make those choices and to live out those dreams. And I always think, when I'm sort of looking back on my life, am I going to regret trying something and failing at it, or I'm going to regret not doing it at all and having that what if? And I know for myself that I will regret the things I don't do more than the things that I do. Because every time you do something, even if it doesn't work out, you've got an experience from that is going to move you to whatever is next. Like, you don't ever have to, again, sort of have in the back of your mind this feeling that like, I could have done that, but I was, I was too scared, or I felt I couldn't do it. Like, it takes a lot of inner work, because we're not conditioned this way, most of us, to be able to go against that instinct that, what if it doesn't work out? What if it goes wrong? Then I think, but what if it does? Like, what if it goes better than what you expect? Like, wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to step into that possibility? Because if you don't go for it, it's going to be a no, 100%. Like, it's not going to happen. But if you do go for it, you've got a 50-50 chance that, it might not work out, but it might work out. And so that's kind of that inner dialogue you have to have with yourself, to ask yourself, what is actually most important to you? Like, how do you want to live your life? What are the things you stand for? And if you really I made a decision when I was about 21 years old that I was going to live my life with no regrets, live my life to the fullest. Because up until that point, I was really sort of a people pleaser, and I was living a lot to please others, and I was noticing that I was not happy. I was just wanting everybody else to be happy, family, friends, partner, and I lost myself. I lost kind of who I was in the process, and I thought, like, this isn't working. I've got to really start tuning into, what is it that is going to light me up? What is it that's really going to make me feel excited about life? And that might mean that I might upset some people. Maybe I might make some choices that not everyone might agree with, or maybe it's not the conventional path. But what it's given me, and what I also, always teach with my clients, is it gives you this um, energy. It gives you this life force energy when you live in alignment that is so much more powerful than anything else. Because when you're in that space of being in alignment with your truth and you're living in your purpose and you're making choices that serve you, your energy and how you feel is so powerful that when you're coming from that space and you're interacting with other people, it lifts other people up. You know, it has this quality where it's a win-win. I know that not all, you know, sometimes when we make choices, it's not always a straight like yes or no, because obviously I know, you know, sometimes we have to make compromises and we can't always have the ideal. But when you have the intention of knowing that, like, I trust that somehow I'm going to figure out a way to make this work. Maybe it's not going to happen right now, but I'm going to find a way to make it work. You'll find a way. Like, there's always a way to make something work if you're willing to step into that possibility. And that's something that yeah, I live by every day, and it's something I teach, you know, to my clients. And yeah, I hope that answers your questions. I don't know if I'm missing anything else
Yeah,
that.
it is. And it's interesting, I think, about how we reframe what we kind of have termed our mistakes or failure as learnings, really. Because I think so many of us, I mean, when we're children and we're learning to walk, you know, we fall over 6, 7, 8, 20 times, you know, and it's kind of accepted, and that's part of the process. We just don't know. We're learning, but then I think as adults it becomes harder and harder, particularly if we do have failures and they are public failures in other people's eyes perhaps. Then I think it's a process of kind of reframing that and kind of thinking, okay, well, what can I learn from it, and adopting that growth mindset, I think, rather than a fixed mindset when it comes to our choices. So yeah, that's really interesting. So tell us more about Choice Point and yeah, how you set that up and where the idea came from.
Yes, absolutely. I love to, because Choice Point Productions, the name of my film company, actually embodies everything that I've just talked about. So it is all about creating media content and films that are bringing in this process of self-awareness. And originally, when I had the idea, I thought my first project was going to be an interactive film with 2 different endings, which will probably happen in the future. But for our first project, we're working with a feature film that has choice points that are done in a different way. So it is a drama narrative, and then for every choice point that the main character goes through, we are putting in an interview with a real life person that's experienced that. And so for this particular project, the storyline is about a soldier that comes back from war and has experienced quite a lot of trauma, doesn't know how to navigate that process of recovery, and makes initially some very poor choices regarding coping, letting a lot of fear drive those choices, and also shame and guilt, not wanting to reach out for support because he feels like he needs to be strong and he needs to hide his inner unseen scars. So we have also interviewed, or we're in the process of interviewing, a number of real life veterans who have been on this journey and who have been faced with those same choices. How do we navigate the process of recovery from trauma? And the story then blends these 2 aspects of looking at a very powerful, entertaining war drama combined with real life experiences of real people that have faced those same choices. So as a viewer, you really get to notice, where are these choices? What happens at each of those critical moments, so that you can pause in that moment and just say, oh, wow, okay, that's what happens when you make that choice versus that one. So it provides so much more than just entertainment, but also empowerment and education. And when I had the idea for this, I thought to myself, I'll do this, like 10 years later. Like I wasn't sure when I was going to do this, but life has a very interesting way, I think, of just guiding you to know when you need to take action. And sometimes it is actually through not the most positive experiences. When I got the idea of doing this, I had a series of events that happened shortly after that. One of them was my dad passed away very suddenly. And then literally it was, I think 2 months later, I live in Manchester in the UK. The Manchester terror attack happened here. And those two events really formed the catalyst of me to decide, like, I'm going to do this now. Because when my dad passed away, I realized time is very short and we actually don't have a lot of time. We never know how much time we have. We might as well go, do the things that we really want to do. And the terror attack was really significant because it was, again, one person's choice that created so much tragedy for the victims. And for those people that don't know, it was a terror attack where a young man killed himself and 22 other people through a bomb that he was a suicide bomber. And I always go to that place of asking, what would make someone make that choice? What was going on for him? Was he coming from anger and pain and fear? Probably. Very vulnerable. And when you're hurting on the inside, sometimes that's the choice that you feel is going to be the one that you need to make. And unfortunately, he probably didn't have other options of having the awareness of knowing that he has other options. And so if he did, he could have made a different choice. And that's when it really hit me that actually there's media such a powerful platform to reach people and to bring in this awareness that when you're in the deepest, darkest places like that, when you feel like the only escape is to kill myself or kill other people or turn to addiction or do something really horrible, it's about knowing that you have other choices. That is not what needs to be driving you to take that action. And so that's when I felt like, okay, I'm doing it now, and I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust that I'm just going to figure out along the way, how to make this a reality and how to make it happen. And so every day I choose to trust in that. I choose to have the courage to move forward with the production, even though we have coronavirus, even though, I'm doing this part-time. So sometimes I wish I could have more time to this, even though it's my first feature film and I don't have an extensive experience in the film industry, but I know that I'm being called to do this. And it's something that by following that guidance is going to lead to creating something that's so much bigger than me, and it's going to influence people in a positive way. So that's the story behind Choice Point, and the mission is to use media to really elevate consciousness and create self-awareness so that as many people as possible know that the choices you make create your reality, and you don't have to let fear, anger, or pain drive your choices. You can choose courage and faith and love, and it creates a radical different reality.
Yeah. What a courageous decision that you made from that. And when you were talking and explaining kind of those choices leading up to you creating Choice Point Productions, something echoed in my head. I love electronic music. There's a song by Alex Metric on Anjuna Deep called Upswing, and it starts with the words, it's not what happens to you, it's your reaction to what happens to you. And like you said, things can come up in life, but it's down to us. We have that agency. to make those choices. And I guess it's like you've said previously, is about just getting in touch with that still place within us to make those choices from a healthy place, I guess, would you say?
Absolutely.
In terms of kind of your thinking about free will, do you think we always have free will with our choices? Do you feel like sometimes things just happen and we don't have choice over them?
I think it's a good question. I think we can't always control everything that happens in our environment, but I do think we have a choice always. We have free will in terms of how we respond to it. So that's where our power is, in that we do have free will in looking at how am I going to respond to whatever's going on around me. I can't, you can't control other people's behavior. You can't control circumstances. Like we've really felt that this year, in 2020, right? A lot of things have been like outside of our control in terms of coronavirus, and we've had to learn how to respond to that. That's where our power is, in choosing how do we respond to that, because we can respond with panic and fear and anger, and that those feelings are normal. But it's like at some point we also need to look at, is this actually serving me to respond to this in this way? Is there a different way I can respond? And by knowing that's where your power is, you can reframe the way you look at something and choose to see, what do I want to do now? How do I want to respond to this? Or what is there here for me to learn if I'm going through something difficult? Then that experience begins to feel like a doorway to your own personal growth and evolution. Because if everything was always going great, it would be wonderful, but it may not be as powerful in terms of our own evolution and our growth, because the biggest lessons usually come when we do have to learn, through not being able to control things, how we respond when we have to pivot. So yeah, free will, I think we do have it. But it's knowing that it's not in anything outside of us. It always comes back to knowing that you've got free will in yourself of how you are navigating and responding to things.
Absolutely. And that's really why I set up this interview series, is because there's so much media outside of ourselves that I think we're not really encouraged to look within, to listen within. There's the news stories and things that are kind of driving us to those emotions of fear and panic and anxiety and things outside of us that we can't control. But like you say, the only thing that we can control is how you respond to those external events and how you respond to the external world. And I think it's about coming into that sense of stillness, it seems, within yourself, and making those kind of choices from there. Would you say there's ever really a wrong choice? Can we go kind of off our path, I suppose?
I love that question. I will say no with a caveat, because it's very, when you say wrong, I kind of think that can mean different things to different people. It's very subjective. Essentially, I believe that if you make a choice that doesn't serve you, like in the sense you make a choice, you try something, it doesn't work out, a relationship doesn't work out, a job doesn't work out, and you're like, well, I chose that and then I made the wrong choice. Knowing that things don't always work out doesn't necessarily, I believe, mean that it's a wrong choice. It's, again, going back to, what is the lesson that I learned from that? And sometimes we have to go through those things in order to then get the lesson or get the clarity regarding like what we do want. I think one of the biggest things that always helps me to not be afraid of things not working out is to know that if I go for something and it doesn't work out, that's always going to give me feedback. It's always going to give me clarity about what I then do want. There's always a golden lesson there. And that's the thing that we need to recognize, them, that choice wasn't wrong at all. Because if it felt right in the moment, then it is the right choice, right? And usually it's only when we look back on things that we say, oh, that was the wrong choice because it didn't work out. But if in the moment it felt right and you went for it, then that, I believe, that was the right choice, because you cannot predict what's going to happen 100%. You can only look back and look at, okay, I tried that, and now I realize, like, if I knew back then what I know now, obviously I would do it differently. But you can't ever have that. You can't know what's going to happen. So you have to trust that that you are making the right choices. If you are following your intuition, if you're following your values, if you're following what feels good, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't go the way you plan, then know that that is still guiding you towards where you need to be going 100%. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Steve Jobs that says, "Don't ever settle," and certainly I can resonate with that in terms of career choices that I've made. I think sometimes we can try things on and they feel right in the moment, but then we learn so much through the process of that. And like you said, you always get feedback from any choice that you make. It helps you with that kind of self-awareness and knowledge, and say, okay, well, I like this, and this doesn't quite fit with me. So I think it's all a process of kind of learning and understanding, isn't it? It's just about reframing that choice in our minds as not ever a wrong choice, perhaps.
Yes. Yes, 100%, because the only time I think that where, the important thing is to learn from the lessons, because if you don't learn the lesson, you may keep repeating that same mistake over and over again until you get the lesson. And so in that sense, there's something about, just noticing, like, oh, this keeps happening to me, or so that's the, instead of telling yourself I keep making the wrong choices, it's more about them looking at, okay, there's something I'm not getting. Like, let me look at that. Let me ask the question of, like, what's the lesson that I'm not learning? And as soon as you're open to learning the lesson, you're going to get it. And then, you're not going to repeat that again. So
Yeah. And is it always our place to kind of judge if someone is making a choice out of love or fear?
I think everyone is doing the best they can with what they know and what they've got. And it's very difficult to put yourself inside someone else's world and know exactly why they're doing what they're doing. So I think it is probably not helpful to judge, because everyone's on their own path, everyone's on their own journey. And sometimes there isn't a black and white. Like, sometimes there is a gray zone where someone thinks they're making the best choice. You might look at that and say, I know there's a better way to do that. But I think we also need to let other people be able to make their choices and learn from them, rather than also try and impose and say, like, you're doing it wrong, or I would do it this way. Because again, everyone's on their own journey, and everyone's responsible for their own life experience, their own lessons. And so what I think is right might not be what is right for someone else. And so my view of what I believe is the right way to respond to something is my way of responding to something. And so I think it does become a little bit more, it usually leads to conflict when we, look at someone else and say, you should do it this way because that's the right way. So we have to, I think, we have to respect that everyone's going to have different perspectives. I think obviously with something like parenting, that's where it can, it can really get a bit complicated because you want to do the best for your kids and sometimes make decisions for them. And at some point, there's got to be an allowance of allowing what the child wants to do to also be acknowledged, not just kind of, as a parent, what you think is always best. And that's not a smooth process. I think that that can be very, that's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's like a Zen or a Buddhist quote that says, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend a week with your family. Because I think it's all about these family dynamics that, whether it's a parent-child, whether it's a mother-daughter, whether it's siblings. I think sometimes because we are so close, I think that can kind of make it difficult to then kind of separate ourselves and say, well, okay, well, actually, no, I know you love me, but this is my choice, or I know I love you and I have to let you make your own choices and maybe even make your own, what I may perceive as mistakes. And that's the thing, right? I guess, like you say, it's kind of loving detachment, I suppose. Is that what you'd say? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had lots of experiences of clients I've worked with that have said, well, I've done this because, I've chosen this career path because my family said that would be the best choice for me. And then they're not happy with it, because all really good intentions coming from parents sort of saying, this is what we think is going to be best for you, or you should do this. But it's not actually what that child really needs, because what they really need to do is to follow their own truth, make choices from their own worldview and their own values, and that might look very different from the parents. And it's then that process as well of trusting, allowing that child to maybe even make some mistakes, and learn from them, and try to be okay. Because I think the fear of parents is like, I just want to make sure that my son or my daughter is okay, so I want to protect them, so I'm going to tell them to do this because I think that's what's going to protect them.
Yeah.
That in itself can actually lead to a fear of, like, we need to learn how to make mistakes and be resilient, because if we're not taught that from a young age, and we're not allowed to do that, then we are going to go out in the world and feel like we won't be able to cope when something goes wrong. It's actually in service to allow children to mess up, and to learn how to be with that, learn how to cope with that, learn how to navigate that, so that they don't feel that's the security then that gets cultivated, where a parent knows, like, my child's going to be okay, they're going to figure it out, because they've messed up a few times and they figured out what to do, and they've got that resiliency, and I'm there to support them. That's a much more powerful place from which to feel security as a parent than just trying to protect. But it's, like I said, a journey to do that.
Absolutely. And I think, like you say, that if a parent can do that and detach, lovingly detach, I think the child then builds that sense of inner trust, right? They can then stand in their own truth a bit more, because they're like, okay, well, I've done that and I've done that and it's failed, but it was down to me. It wasn't me just going on somebody's direction, which, can be difficult and can be painful, perhaps, for the child and even the parent, but that person ultimately gains that kind of inner confidence of, okay, well, here's my barometer, and this is how I make choices that serve myself, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So in terms of your own truth, have you had like challenges when standing in your truth, particularly around your wider circle, like maybe family and the friends, and then colleagues, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I have. I think as I've gotten older, I think I have less challenges in respect to just getting maybe a bit of backlash for standing in my truth. But I think it's because I've developed the resiliency and the confidence to do that. But certainly when I was younger, there was yeah, I was also, in that place of trying to figure out what's right for me. And that took quite a bit of courage because it wasn't always what people around me thought was best for me. And so I had to sort of respect their opinions and their feedback, but still follow what I felt was right. And the moment I began to do that, it set me on a completely different trajectory in my life, because I remember that one of the first things I did that kind of set me on that trajectory was to actually move from Canada to the UK to do my master's there, right, where we met. And so that felt like a big thing for me at the time, just because of how young I was, and I never, lived on my own, and it was a different country, and all of that. But it was also me kind of beginning that journey of saying, I'm gonna follow what I feel is right, and just separate myself from kind of my bubble of that I was in. And ever since then, that just became my way of living. It's about following my truth, and not looking back, and continuing to make choices that are in alignment, and knowing that not everyone's going to understand it. Like, that was a big thing for me as well. Like, in the beginning, I thought I want everybody to come on board and just like, understand why I'm doing this and why it's important to me. And not everybody did. And some people were, questioning, like, why are you doing that? What, I don't get it. And I was like, had a hard time with that. But then eventually I was like, okay, you don't have to get it. It's okay. What's most important is that I know why I'm doing it, and I'm happy, and that's when I communicated that, like, I'm happy, and that's the only thing I want you to sort of get. Then it became a lot easier, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we're all searching for, is happy. We want to be happy. We want to be joyful. So that's the most important thing, I think, is knowing that we don't have to understand why people make certain choices, and people don't have to understand why you make your choices. But what's really most important is to always look at, am I happy? Are they happy? If yes, then that's really what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely something I've struggled with as well. I saw something really interesting, I think it was yesterday, and it said, everything I've ever let go of has claw marks in it. And I thought, oh, that's so me, because I'm a Leo, lion, And it's kind of like, I want to bring so many people on the journey with me, and get them to kind of understand where I'm coming from. But like you say, that doesn't always happen. And when you do that, it can keep you kind of stuck in a certain place, essentially. So it's kind of, like you say, just trusting that the right people will kind of join you on your journey wherever that may go.
Yeah. And eventually people will, like, eventually I find people also can come around. So in the beginning, they might say, totally don't agree with what you're doing, or we think it's stupid. But if you stick the course, and then people follow your journey, eventually a lot of those same people will say, oh, okay, now I totally get why you're doing it. Or like, yeah, it's really working out for you now. And that's, a really powerful lesson as well for them, right? Because it shows that actually you're demonstrating, again, the power of following your own truth. And then other people can sort of witness that. So it's a really powerful form of giving other people permission to do the same. When we go first, it carves the path for other people to do the same, because then they're like, oh wow, I can do that too. I can follow my truth. I can make those choices. So it's always a win-win, but it does take courage, and I think the tenacity to, as you say, to know that sometimes it's going to feel a bit lonely, and that you have the willingness to be okay with that.
Mm.
The right people will always join you, people that resonate.
Totally. And final question: do you think that truth changes? And if so, how can we listen if truth does change constantly?
Yeah, I do think it does. And the reason I think it does is because I think we're ever evolving, growing, just like anything you look at in nature, it's either continually slowly growing or it's slowly dying. And I do believe that we're not meant to stay kind of stagnant and just always, just be in one place all the time. I think life is always calling us to grow through all kinds of different experiences. And so if we just embrace that, like, I am always going to be growing and expanding and being called to keep elevating myself and keep, stepping into more and more of who I am, and that may evolve and change over time, then it becomes such an exciting journey, because it's like, of course I'm going to change. Of course I'm going to, you know, live into this chapter of my life, and then, for example, that chapter might reach its purpose, and then there's another chapter that I get to step into. And it's knowing that is part of life. I think it makes it so exciting, because if we just kind of stay in one place, it does mean that it can feel scary as well to keep growing and evolving and changing. And that's as well, I think, where we get more fearful, and we want to, like, just hold on to what is. And sometimes, again, we can't. Life will push us to have to let go of things. So I think of it as like just a part of life. Like, you cannot resist the laws of the universe and the laws of nature and life in general, right? And if you look at nature, nature has its seasons, its cycles. It doesn't stay the same. It's always changing. And that's the only thing that doesn't change, is that everything changes.
Yeah, totally.
I think truth as well, like truth through changes. I know I'm still the same, but I'm not the same. Like, when I think back to how I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I think, man, there's been a lot of growth and a lot of evolution. And I know
Not the same. No, definitely not. No.
and how amazing it is to just have that experience of embracing that, and knowing that that's to be celebrated, and who knows what the next 5-10 years is going to bring.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe things that you aren't even aware of that you may be doing in 5-10 years, that your journey, and it's calling you to expand. And who knows what the next level of your potential is, right? It could be, I didn't conceive of being a filmmaker. Like, that wasn't in my plan 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. And now it's the most exciting part of my journey at the moment. And so, yes, I think we do need to keep embracing our journey and evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it as like a river, we're kind of going down this river, and we can kind of try and hold on to the sides, but if we do that, it's going to probably cause us a lot of pain. So it's best to just let go and go with the flow. Thank you so much, Dr. Kasia Wilk, for sharing all of your wisdom with us. Is there anything else you want to share in terms of choice points or standing in your truth?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here, and I think it's amazing what you're doing to have these conversations and to bring them to people. So I want to just acknowledge you for that. The amazing work that you do, and the woman that you are, that I know you to be. And I think my final point is just to let people know that there's so many possibilities out there, and to really trust that life is here for you. It's not meant to be a struggle. It's not meant to be hard. There will be challenges, but to really connect with your desires and just move towards them. Allow yourself to move towards what feels good. Feel those feelings of excitement that come with the possibilities that excite you, and then allow yourself to make them happen, you know, and experience the joy, because I do believe life is meant to be joyful. So
Yeah, and it feels good. Feels good to grow towards the sun and towards those things that, you know, feel good and feel nice.
yes.
So yeah, thank you so much. Where can people find you online?
Best spot is my website, which is www.drkasiawilk.com, kasiawilk.com. I'm also on social media, so at Dr. Kasia Wilk on Instagram, at Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well, so any of those platforms people can find me. And for the film company, it's choicepointproductions.com. We do also have a website for the film, which is unseenscarsfilm.com. All of that can be, anything about the film can be found on those websites. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kasia.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.